money is over 3,000 years old. You'd never believe it. Behold, the beautiful princess, Frances B.
Where am I?
In Hollywood, the land of magic.
Come with me and find your dream. I've got a ticket and a scheme to put you on the silver screen, going Hollywood today. I'll teach you how to sing and dance, or cast you in a film romance. You'll never have a second chance, going Hollywood today. You'll take your place among the stars and dine with them and laugh. The public and press will mob your car and beg you for an autograph. When at the studio's command, you're crowned the queen of movie land. Remember, I'm your biggest fan, going Hollywood today.
Okay, hop on, Sancho. You boys know the rules. It was a great fight, Hopper, and I'm glad you won.
That was me in the little car back in 1931, racing the Marx Brothers around the Paramount studio lot. Did you notice who was waving the flags? Charles Lawton and Carol Lombard. I was taking part in one of Hollywood's favorite pastimes, publicity. In those days, and even today, anything that could get attention would be used by the studio's promotion departments. Even our most intimate dreams.
Ah, Hollywood. You'd better be getting yourself a good husband and stop mooning about Hollywood. You know what she wants to do? She wants to go to Hollywood. I've known it all along. I've seen her making faces in the mirror and talking to herself. That's what comes of your movies.
Why, what would you do if you did go to Hollywood?
I'd be an actress. I would, I tell you. I've always known I could.
This was Hollywood, and what you are about to see is Hollywood looking at itself, how it created its image and promoted that image to audiences around the world. Our Hollywood fantasies didn't bloom overnight, but were carefully nurtured over many years. Filmmaking began in New York at the turn of the century. In those days, most moviegoers were from the working class, and movie actors had an image problem. They got no respect. So what did they do? Well, they improved their image, put a little shine on the apple, so to speak, by making films that glorified their craft. A Vitagraph romance. This was the beginning of the Hollywood image as audiences saw a romanticized version of how movies were made. Soon stars became household names, and going to the movies became a respectable social event. The demand for films grew, and the New York-based companies sent crews west looking for better climate.
They turned one-room operations into huge, glamorous factories like this. Larger than life in appearance, only matched by the images they gave a fantastically growing audience. Long ago, these studios became international names. MGM, Fox, Universal, United Artists, Paramount. The common birthplace for all these began in a dusty little community not 10 miles from downtown Los Angeles. The year was 1911.
It was in that year that the real estate developers of rural acreage known as Hollywoodland met the budding moguls of a rapidly growing industry. Soon movie making became established in California, and the word spread quickly throughout the land. One of Hollywood's pioneer filmmakers was Hal Roach, the creator of Laurel and Hardy, Topper, and incidentally the man who gave me my first big role in the Our Gang comedies.
I was an extra, did every kind of a part you could think of. In those days, if they liked you, you could play 2 or 3 parts in a picture by putting on a mustache or a beard or changing your expression or something like that.
Early on, Hollywood began to live up to its image as the glamour capital. Here is a Universal Studio tour of 1914. As you can see, Conan the Barbarian was not the main attraction. For audiences, it was the first glimpse of behind-the-scenes Hollywood and the beginning of the making of the myth. Within a few years, the studios had expanded beyond the wildest dreams of the early pioneers, and most had moved their operations to larger quarters outside of Hollywood. No longer just a suburb of L.A., Hollywood had become a state of mind forever associated with the motion picture industry. The barns and shacks had been replaced by gleaming white studios. Here we see MGM in an excerpt from a feature-length film the studio produced about itself in the mid-1920s. MGM led us into the lives of its stars, such as Norma Shearer. Its studio head, Louis B. Mayer, and his protege, Irving Thalberg. Lucille Lesueur, after a nationwide naming contest, would be rechristened Joan Crawford. At the studios, everyone was always hard at work. Across the town from MGM stands Paramount, smack dab in the middle of Hollywood. A trip to Paramount Town is a rare example of early studio publicity, one of the few which remain. The only known copy, it was discovered in the garage of a cameraman who had had it for 60 years. As you can see, Hollywood filmmaking was shown in grand style with a cast of thousands. The master of the Hollywood spectacle was Cecil B. DeMille, whose flamboyance and epic films made him one of the industry's most powerful personalities. Another personality of the day was Rudolph Valentino, seen here in Blood and Sand. Months before the film was released, audiences in theaters across the country were treated to these teasers promoting the upcoming film. This was a rarely seen Valentino, taking direction and kidding around with his fellow actors. On the same publicity film, audiences caught a glimpse of one of Hollywood's great legends, Gloria Swanson, shown here getting ready for a scene. The public was always eager to know about Gloria, whose many marriages and wild spending made her a favorite. It's said she made and spent $8 million in the 20s alone. And looking at her wardrobe, you can see how. Film production had come a long way, and by the end of the Roaring '20s, the technology of sound was perfected. It would change Hollywood forever, forcing everyone to adjust, including the publicity departments.
I am privileged to say a few words to you in this most modern and novel manner.
Never shy with the written word, publicity had a tough time finding anyone who wasn't uncomfortable talking to a camera, and this was the result.
The coming of one of the year's outstanding pictures. What is the picture? Oh, well, of course. You've guessed that I'm referring to Warner Brothers' supreme triumph, Hal Jolson in The Jazz Singer.
Promotion departments were constantly drumming up storms over Hollywood to attract the public's eye, and when sound began, there was a thunder. Jazz singer audiences got a real feel for the Hollywood premiere, including its stars like Hal Jolson, all with sound. The town went into a state of hysterics, but the biggest casualties were often the stars themselves, who, despite coaches and training, just couldn't find the voice to fit their old image. Those who couldn't sadly found themselves spotlighted in situations like this and recorded in a 1928 Hollywood newsreel. But sound was sure the new gimmick, and though an actor may have had a tough time, a cartoon character had no trouble finding his voice. Western Electric commissioned Max Fleischer, creator of Popeye and Betty Boop, to make this cartoon promoting their sound system. The story was simple. What happened in Hollywood if you couldn't speak?
Hey, Mute, what's the big idea of busting up my act? I'm a new man. Haven't you heard about the wonderful thing Dr. Weston did for me? He stepped up my post, gave me a set of vocal cords. You ought to see him. Take it from me, you'll never land a job the way you are.
The motion picture capital of the world.
The talkies may have been a boom for Tinseltown, but no sooner did Hollywood boom, it busted, as did most of the country during the Great Depression. Many studios with their giant overheads faced bankruptcy, while others were able to adapt to changing conditions. One was a smaller studio named Mascot, headed by the king of the serials, Nat Levine.
Peculiarly, we did very well during the serials because we were making material that the children liked, and it took the family's thoughts away from the Depression, see. Not alone that, but principally, the admission on Saturday afternoons was 5 cents, something of that nature. And you know how parents are insofar as their children are concerned, see. So we did better during the Depression than when we originally did very well.
Hollywood quickly recognized that a healthy economy meant a healthy Hollywood, and as part of the effort to lift the nation's spirit, happily lent its stars to both federal and local efforts. Here is an unaffected Mae West shown in a rare promotional film inviting her friends to the 1933 Los Angeles County Sheriff's barbecue.
Friends, I want you all to be there. It's a worthy cause. Thank you. Oh, won't you come up and see me sometime?
Shirley Temple helped out the American Red Cross.
Once upon a time when I was very young and first worked in pictures, I used to get awful worried about all the troubles. I wish all the bad things in the world could turn out to be just pretending. But this is happening. It's not a make-believe flood. And these people are really and truly getting hurt. But my mommy told me about the people who help. The American Red Cross. I'm all dressed up like one of them. Whenever there's trouble, they're right there to help people. It costs a whole $1 to join. And that's an awful lot of money. But won't you please try hard to find that much? So as you can help?
There is gold in the blue, there is hope in the hearts of men. All the world.
Warner Brothers lent Dick Powell to explain President Roosevelt's National Recovery Act.
President Roosevelt has asked each employer to split up existing work to give more people jobs. and see to it that every man has a living wage.
Yes, a man and every man's job. I live to see the freeing of the slaves. But this is a step toward the freeing of the slaves of the sweatshops, eliminating child labor, and giving the toilers a chance to enjoy the beauties of life.
Oh, I see. As soon as everybody goes back to work, they have more money to spend, and that would increase business everywhere. Is that right?
That's it exactly. The more people buy, the more things the manufacturers will have to make, and the farmers will have to grow. And the road to better times will be open again.
The road to better times. Open again. Open.
He's been writing a song for the NRA.
There's nothing like a good song to inspire a nation.
There's a new day in view, there is gold in the blue, there is hope in the hearts of men. All the world's on the way to a sunnier day, for the road is open again. There's a note of repair, there's a song in the air, it's the music of busy men. Every plow in the land meets a happier hand, 'cause the road is open again. There's eagles blue in the White House blue on the shoulder of our president there, with a lusty call telling one and all, brother, do your share. There's a new day in you, there is gold in the blue, there is hope in the hearts of men. From the plain to the hill, from the farm to the mill, on the road is home and again.
The Depression had another effect on Hollywood. Even as it was struggling to survive, the glamour image it had created became even more irresistible to the thousands seeking their chance for stardom.
My grandmother, who babysat me while my mother played the piano in a radio station in Hollywood, found out they paid $2 a day and gave you a box lunch. So they would choose her. People used to stand in line outside a studio, and an assistant director would go out and look for people. There was no Screen Extras Guild or anything like that where you called people in advance to be an extra. So pretty soon they started hiring this woman who had the little baby with her. Everybody thought it was my mother. And then after a while, they began to hire me and not my grandmother. In either event, they only gave us one box lunch because they were only hiring one of us at a time.
What powerful urge keeps Hollywood's hopefuls everlastingly at it? Genevieve, why are you here?
Everybody back in Birmingham knows I'm out here. They expect me to quit. I'm not going back there and be the laughing stock.
How about you, Grace?
That's what I said 14 years ago. Now I'm satisfied with a job. I've got 3 children to support.
Goldie, what dreams, what ideals keep you here?
I hung around New York so long I got to be a landmark. People used to point me out like the Statue of Liberty. I'm going to grab off some old guy with lots of dough.
Suzanne, what about you?
Someday, somehow, I'm going to be, well, maybe not a star, but a real actress.
Pride, necessity, adventure, ambition. From the ends of the earth they come, waiting for the magic call.
Snap into it, girls. You're 5 minutes late now.
The magic call that may mean the lucky break. However, the chances are 1,000,000 to 1 against these girls becoming stars.
In order to give you the best available training, we have secured the services of the world's champion flagpole sitter, Shipwreck Kelly.
The publicity departments had a pool of extras who were often willing to do just about anything in the hopes of being discovered, even if it meant doing these somewhat absurd promotionals for films. Like this one, shot on the Paramount lot overlooking the Hollywood Hills.
The aerial endurance athlete. Thank you, Mr. Gordon. Thank you, Shipwreck. They're all yours.
Now, girls, as a sport, flagpole sitting, beats, tennis, swimming, or golf. Who wants to go up first?
I know!
I prefer blonde.
Can I go?
Oh, hey.
Go over your head.
All right, Goldie, come on. Let's get up. Put your foot right there. Raise yourself. Throw your leg right over. Okay.
Gee, this is ducky. You can see the entire studio up here.
The writer Nathaniel West once described Hollywood of the 30s as a collection of America's madmen. And when you think of the odds the hopefuls faced, that may not be a bad description. But Hollywood didn't want to see the agony in its hopefuls' eyes, so they put a little rouge on their cheeks and said smile. Especially in one of the countless promos highlighting a new discovery.
Still, Buster. Look this way, Mr. Kraft. Don't move, girl.
Well, we got it that time. Thanks.
Thank you. I have cars to take you girls to the hotel.
Oh, but we don't want to go to the hotel. We want to see some of Hollywood nights like we read about.
Why, don't make me laugh, girls. Hollywood's a 9 o'clock town.
You can't fool a Scots lassie. I've read all about Hollywood. Sure, and I've lost many a night sleeping her and reading about Hollywood.
Oh, come on and say you'll show us the sights.
Why, I'm sorry to disappoint you girls, but I have a previous engagement.
Oh, too bad.
The plight of the extra girl became a popular theme in Hollywood. Here, Janet Gaynor learns the truth about the town.
I beg your pardon. I'd like to register for extra work.
How long have you been in Hollywood?
Well, it's about a month now.
We haven't put anyone on our books for over 2 years. Come here. I'd like to show you something. Every time you see one of those little lights flash, it's somebody asking for a job. Every time you hear them say, try later, it means there isn't any job. You can't keep the girls at the switchboard long. They go crazy. Every one of those little lights thought it was going to be a star. You still want to go in the movies? You know what your chances are? 1 in 100,000.
But maybe I'm that one.
To be that one was central to this 1935 Paramount promo for C.B. DeMille's classic, The Crusades.
Hollywood, magic city of illusion, home of celebrated personalities. West, Crosby, Dietrich. But what about the unknowns, the extras, the faces in the mob scenes? Are they real, these people who wear numbers instead of names? Let us select offhand Hollywood extra girl number 1472. Take her apart and discover what makes her tick. To find her, we merely dial Garfield 3711 and get...
Central casting. File room. Just a moment, please.
From thousands of registration cards, we find her. Suzanne Emery, age 19, height 5 feet 4, weight 112 pounds. Brown hair, blue eyes. Clothes are the tools of her craft. Early to bed for that beauty sleep. Up at 6, and always hoping that today will be the day Dame Fortune smiles and picks you from the mob. An inexperienced girl like Suzanne has but one chance in a million. Let's give her that chance. Let's pick her out of the mob and see what happens.
Mr. DeMille, all ready to go? Quiet. We're trying to take a scene here. We've got 4,000 people on this set. You people chatter like a lot of monkeys. Now keep quiet and attend to your business.
Star of many DeMille classics, Henry Wilcoxon remembered how DeMille treated an extra on the set of The Crusades.
And Mr. DeMille gave his usual little speech, you know, over the microphone, and he said, now I want absolute quiet. This is costing a lot of money. It's costing thousands of dollars a minute. Now, I don't want anyone to make one sound, even the actors, until I finally say action.
You townspeople over beyond the gate there. Yes, now as these crusaders come riding through, you're seeing a great movement, a great sweeping forward of these men who are leaving you, perhaps for all time. They're your fathers, your brothers, your husbands. Let me see that in your faces. Come on now, work yourselves into the emotion of such a scene. Don't be extras. Be a nation watching its manhood ride out on a great cause. The crusade. Are you ready, Tate?
Already and turning, Mr. DeMille.
All right now, give me everything you've got, you people. Ready now? Right? Come on, come up to it now.
Then the sound man said, speed, and DeMille said, ready, right, cut. And we all wondered what was the matter. And he looked up and he said, there's a young woman, a red-haired woman, in a green dress up on top of that 5-story house up there. She started talking and turned to her friend before I had said action. Get her down.
Assistant director, one of your men, Tate, McDonald.
And then DeMille was up on a platform with camera number 1, and she came up the steps as if she was going to have her head cut off. And he said, well, young woman, am I right in saying that you started to talk before I said action? And this girl said, and he had the microphone and he held it to her. Yes, Mr. DeMille, that's right. I did say something. Well, perhaps you will tell us what it was that was so important that you had to say something and disobey my orders. What was it you said? I'd rather not say, Mr. DeMille. I'd rather not say. And he'd say, oh, you'd rather not say. Well, I'll tell you this, that if you don't say what it was that was so important, I'll see to it that you do not work in a Paramount picture again, or that you do not work in any pictures again in this town. Now, what was it? She said, all right. And she took the microphone. She said, well, Mr. DeMille, I turned to my friend and I said, I wonder when the old bald-headed son of a bitch is going to call lunch. And DeMille got absolutely purple in his face. And I thought, well, we all thought that he was going to kill her, you know, and so he grabbed the microphone from her like that and he said, lunch.
It was said that beneath his brusque manner, DeMille was really a softy.
Yeah. Haven't been in pictures very long, have you?
It seems long, Mr. DeMille. Almost a year.
No. What's the number of that next scene?
342.
Uh-huh. What's your name?
Suzanne Emery.
Expect to see it in electric lights, I suppose.
I did once.
Discouraged?
Sometimes. But maybe I'll get a break someday.
Maybe you will. Well, boy, get me a chair. I can't stand up all day. My heels get tired. You know, I have a daughter in pictures, too.
Yes, Catherine DeMille. She's lovely.
Yes. Sweet girl, isn't she? I know what a girl goes through. As a father, I have the opportunity to judge at home. I know the heartbreak and the worry and the mad yearning to succeed. As a director, I should tell you that you haven't got one chance in 10,000. But as a father, I tell you to stick to your guns, to win, to be true to your ideals. But when your chance comes, if it comes. Be sure you're ready for it. That means work.
Move that gobo in.
When you were ready, you faced the screen test, as the fictional Esther Blodgett did in the original A Star Is Born.
Bring it down a little. That's it. Pull down on that 150. Ready to take him. Get pulled down on that 150. Okay. Bring me an apple box.
Listen, gentlemen, please, if you don't mind. This is just a test.
Ready, Mr. Burke.
All ready, Mr. Burke. Ready, Mr. Burke.
Ready now, Mr. Burke.
All ready, Mr. Burke.
We're ready now, Mr. Burke.
All ready, Mr. Burke.
We're ready, Mr. Burke.
All right, let's take it.
Quiet! 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 Quiet!
Ready, Norman?
Yeah.
You ready, Miss, what's your name?
You'll soon know your name, Esther. The whole world's going to know it.
But I'm so scared. Maybe I better not try it today.
Oh, come on, now don't be foolish. They all had to go through this. Harlow, Lombard, Myrna Loy, and now Esther Blodgett.
All right. I'm ready.
This is a take. Roll 'em. Quiet. Hey.
Screen tests were usually for beginners, and were rarely done with the pizzazz of the tests you just saw. Few of those first efforts have survived the test of time, but there were exceptions. Here's John Barrymore doing scenes from Hamlet. Though many feel that his stage performance was the finest of its day, by the late 1930s, his drinking and unreliability were a problem, and may have been the reason why the legendary actor's role was never captured beyond these few words.
I'll make a toast of him that lets me, I say, away!
At least Barrymore's name was already well known from the stage. Some newcomers weren't so lucky and found that their name didn't fit the studio image.
Very truly. Do you know what her name is? Esther Victoria Blodgett.
Hey, we'll have to do something about that right away.
Esther Victoria Blodgett.
Well, that Blodgett's definitely out. Let's see, Esther Victoria, Vicky. How about Vicky?
Oh, I think that's terribly cute.
Let's see, Vicky. Vicky what?
Vicky. Pronounced Vicky.
See, Esther, Bester, Sester, Dester, Fester.
Oh, that's very pretty.
Jester, Hester, Dester, Lester. Vicky Lester.
Oh, I like that.
Say it.
Vicky Lester.
Say it again.
Vicky Lester.
Say it again.
Vicky Lester.
Say it.
Vicky Lester.
Say Vicky Lester.
Vicky Lester.
Vicky Lester.
Vicky Lester.
Vicky Lester.
The major studios were not the only game in town. Another side of Hollywood then and now are the independents, whose films had a feel all of their own.
Don't get personal, you big palooka. It's guys like you that make birds like me hate guys like you.
One of today's leading independents is producer-director Roger Corman.
Well, historically, the majors have dominated the motion picture business, primarily through their production, but also their very strong distribution organizations, and at one time they controlled the theaters, which has reduced or left the independent primarily to the fringe or to at least a little bit of the outside of the motion picture business. That's changed a little bit recently, but it still pretty much predominates.
Thundering across the galaxy, space raiders. One brave boy fighting to save the universe.
Such an appealing little boy.
Look, you're a kid. You're no gunner.
I'm the only gunner you got.
He's 10 years old, and they've taken him 10 million miles into space.
It's the adventurers who make it.
The greatest adventure a kid ever had. Space Raiders, rated PG.
We put a lot of reliance on the trailers because the trailer would be in the theater a couple of weeks before the film. It's essentially free advertising, and it would give the exact audience you were looking for in the specific part of town in the theater a chance to see the film. So we felt it was one of the strongest, and I believe that to this day. But the trailer is one of the strongest selling tools you have, although it's not generally recognized as such.
From Space Raiders to Rocket Man, Hollywood has had a long line of independent producers who've been thrilling us with guarantees of action and adventure.
When a gang of foreign agents plot to kill the leading scientists of the world, Jeff King, thunderbolt of the air, wrecks their plans by his heroic action. Rocket Man. Bringing you a screenful of pulse-pounding excitement. There's only one answer. Jeff King must die.
Yes, but how? We've already tried a dozen ways to kill him.
There's one way we haven't tried.
Listen to this. Yours is the wealthiest city in the world. I want that wealth. If you fail to meet my $1 billion ransom demand by Wednesday at 2 p.m., I will destroy New York City.
One of Hollywood's top independents during the 30s was Nat Levine.
It was so difficult to get independent pictures. There weren't too many, and those that were available were quite poor. In fact, I think I could say that I distributed some of the world's worst pictures during that period of time, but I had no alternative. At any rate, it was a great experience. And I determined that the only way I could make progress in this business was to go into production. So what production? In analyzing the market, I came to the conclusion that serials would be the best thing for me because there was less competition in serials than any other type of picture.
Millions of people, mostly between 8 and 15 years old, would go weekly to their theaters and watch Nat's serials. At the beginning of each show, you saw a few minutes of scenes from the previous weeks to bring you up to date.
A mysterious criminal who calls himself the Eagle is plotting against the directors of an airplane factory, whom he has tried to frighten with warnings written on the sky in smoke and fire. The directors have reason to suspect that the Eagle is Nathan Gregory, owner of a small carnival show, who has accused them of stealing from him an invention that is worth a fortune. Gregory's daughter, Jean, has found the Eagle's skywriting plane, which she now discovers is operated by radio control. While Jean is in the plane, the Eagle sends it up into the air and telephones Craig McCoy, Jean's friend, that he intends to crash the plane.
I was impressed with the way John Wayne looked, and I determined to put him under contract. The contract was for 3 years, $100 the first year, $150 the second year, and $200 the third year. But it was confined to a limited time of the year so that he could go out and get any other deals that he wanted. We would coordinate his available time, which was very wonderful for him because at the time he was broke, he had just gotten married, he had no income, and this gave him an income every week in the year. Subsequently, he made deals to make other pictures, which was very satisfactory. My dealings with him were wonderful. He was really a pro. He was everything a producer would hope to be.
And as for you, Kelly, I always keep my promise.
All the cereals had one ingredient.
Action. Action and suspense. To bring them back is something that they talked about all week. They were arguing, discussing. Well, how could he possibly get out of this? What did he do? What did she do? See?
One of Levine's most popular serials was The Whispering Shadow.
What's that? Stay where you are. The Whispering Shadow. Look. It's a trap. Get going, Bud. Fools, you cannot escape. Step on it, Bud.
Believe it or not, Nat's early serials have inspired future generations of Hollywood filmmakers, including George Lucas and Steve Spielberg, as well as every action-packed TV serial that's been on. The common ingredients, chases, shootouts, and stunts, all directed by legendary stuntman Yakima Canutt.
We gotta stop him. Grab the truck before she goes off the road.
We had, aside from special effects, we had process equipment. And we spent a lot of money on it because our serials were we had fairly decent stories, see, but they were mostly action. Special effects played a very important part.
You could say special effects were noticeably simpler compared to today, but the audience was really interested in the action and seeing their hero beat the bad guys, especially if the villain was Bela Lugosi.
You! Give me that package. Keep away from me or I shoot.
Plots were confusing, a little like Who Shot J.R. Nobody knew for sure who the villain was, and everyone was suspect at one point. The serials had a built-in component, leaving you hanging, and it had audiences coming back for 30 years. While Hollywood succeeded in making itself look glamorous, it had an image problem dealing with America's minorities and social morals. The majors rarely dealt with minorities at all, and the independents who did had mixed results. This early studio clip is a crass example of Hollywood reflecting its own prejudices.
Chief. Yes, and I've outguessed you too, Barton. There's another killing in Chinatown. A laundryman on Huron Street. Ah, what do I care about another laundryman? The world is full of them. Besides, I send my stuff out to a steam laundry anyway. Did you ever run into a Chinaman by the name of Wong? If I ever run into one that ain't named Wong. Oh, now never mind that stuff. Park yourself down in Chinatown and remember the name. Wong. Fu Wong.
It was a Hollywood where a Chinese named Wong could be played by a heavily accented Hungarian named Bela.
Stand toy. No have coin.
What is this you have come to fling in my face? With only one coin to be found, and calmly you report failure. No, Minister. Why, it's did I? What the eyes express so plainly. No! 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 You owls with the rat. We'll make him speak the truth.
Oh, he's mad, I tell you.
There were some notable early films featuring blacks, such as Paul Robeson's Emperor Jones, but more likely they weren't anywhere near that quality. Here, Ethel Waters appears in an all-black musical made for black audiences, called Bubbling Over. If anything, it bubbles over with the prejudices of the day.
Let me try. Have that pen. I've lost it. My goodness. Maybe he's dead. Yeah, from the neck up. This will get it. Not him, sir. Did I hear y'all say something about lunch?
You sure did, but just make believe I was fooling, 'cause you ain't gonna get none nohow.
Well, I ain't did nothing.
That's just it.
But I was just arrested.
Resting. That's all you and your relatives do, rest. It's wonder you don't get tired of resting all the time.
There you go, picking on my relatives again.
Look here, man, if you think I'm gonna feed you and your relation too, you got another thing coming. Look at 'em. There's that lazy niece of yours. And your Uncle Uranus. Oh, Uncle Uranus, just how do you pass the time?
I don't, Ethel. I just sit here and let the time pass me.
Surprise. Can I come in?
You is in. How are you, Joe? Where's your baggage?
Well, I ain't brought much baggage. I figure you got everything I need here. But I was scared I might get a little low. So I brung my 3 brothers along. Come along, little doggies. Come along.
Well.
Just a minute. Where y'all launching off to? What is this, a quartet?
Yes, I'm nothing else but. How about it, boys?
On an uptown avenue, where the welcome on the mat. You find it meant for you when you hang your hat in a Harlem flat. That's when they sort away, why sit around the jet? You get to eat the chair when you hang your hat in a Harlem flat. Then the southern cooking starts to looking for the dining room. Oh, what a sweet perfume. Da-da-da-da. That make you feel as though you're a real aristocrat. They make you hate to go when you hang your hat in a Harlem flat.
Here is the trailer for The Streets of Forgotten Women. Nowadays, you couldn't put it in the same league as Deep Throat, but back in the 20s, this was as risque as Hollywood dared get, and it left nothing unpromised. The advertising called it the greatest, most sensational, gripping, and daring film ever made. The story was based on a woman's experience in a house of shame, and it promised to be nothing but the naked truth. But as you can see, there is a wide gap between promise and delivery. Many of Hollywood's films did nothing to dispel the notion of Hollywood as Sin City. After all, the town had a reputation to live up to. But what was really going on behind the scenes? With 75 years in the business, Hal Roach comments on the casting couch phenomenon.
Oh, I just don't know what the answer is. I mean, you hear of the floor walker going out with the sales girls and the doctors going out with their nurses, and I presume producers went out with the actresses in the same degree. And I don't think there was any more sex involvement as far as the business was concerned than there was in any other business.
Censorship, first adopted in 1922, tried to keep stories clean. This W.C. Fields sequence was cut from The Dentist not only because of its lewd mannerisms, but because dentists of the day found it insulting.
Have you ever had this tooth pulled before?
No.
This won't hurt you much. Get your foot out. Get it out. Get it out.
Relax. Would you like a drink? What is it? Water. No, thanks.
Avoid the dangerous pitfalls of these ravaging social diseases.
Although most of the early exploitation films have been thankfully lost, some have survived the test of time and have unintentionally become pretty funny. 1935's sexploitation sleeper Sex Madness, a story of lust and venereal disease, is no exception.
Ladies and gentlemen, first, I want to thank my father that his fight against the follies of youth has saved me from a life of misery. And tonight, I want to relate to you my own experiences with this blight upon mankind. Our crowd of boys were out for a good time, and we went to a burlesque show.
Darling, tonight, you can phone home and say you're staying with friends.
Stay at my place tonight, won't you?
Man, oh man, has she got it? Boy, oh boy, look at that baby. Isn't she something?
Oh, we thought we were regular cut-ups, all right. From the show, we went to a house party with drinks and girls and, well, all that goes with it. That was the start of months of misery, with patent medicines, quack doctors, and sleepless nights. Until finally, I came to my father for help. He had a competent physician treat me, and soon my health and spirits returned. And that's why I'm here tonight. Unashamed to spread the gospel for the benefit of the countless boys and girls who, like myself, indulged in supposedly innocent fun.
In those days, studio censorship was geared to controlling the stars. They wanted total control. They wanted to be free to show off not only their pictures, but supposedly the very private lives of their actors and actresses, all in the name of selling tickets.
The promotion system sometimes backfired. When personal problems arose and the studios couldn't cover them up, you had scandals. Actors could be easily shaped on the way up, but declining careers quickly turned sour. This was how Hollywood looked at one of its own stars plummeting.
You said the right thing. I want to be the very first one to congratulate you on that valuable little piece of bric-a-brac. Now I want to make a speech. Gentlemen of the Academy and fellow suckers, I got one of those once for a best performance. They don't mean a thing. People get them every year. What I want's a special award, something nobody else can get. I want a statue for the worst performance of the year. In fact, I want 3 statues for the 3 worst performances of the year, because I've earned them. And every single one of you that saw those last masterpieces of mine knows that I've earned them.
Libby, start the music.
What I'm here to find out is, do I get them or do I get them? Now answer yes or no.
Will Rogers poked fun at Hollywood's problems. But the public called them scandals. The very name musters up unsolved murders, ruined careers, public humiliation, not to mention very upset studio bosses. One scandal that had all the ingredients began in San Francisco's St. Francis Hotel and centered around this 350-pound comedian, Fatty Arbuckle. By 1921, he was earning well over $1 million a year and had a long-term contract with Paramount Pictures. Following an all-night party in his suite in the St. Francis Hotel, Arbuckle was accused of physically abusing an innocent starlet. Though he was innocent and would be acquitted later, the comedian was a 350-pound rapist in the public's eye with a smile that became a sneer. Arbuckle didn't stand a chance. Even though the studio paid for his defense, character witnesses from Hollywood were not allowed to testify, afraid that their reputations would be tarnished. Eventually, after a couple of trials, he was acquitted, but his career was ruined. His already completed films never shown. Fatty Arbuckle was a victim of his own fame. A few weeks later, Hollywood was rocked by the murder of famed director William Desmond Taylor. At the time of his murder, he was having a serious friendship with popular star Mabel Normand. Her career ended shortly thereafter. If that wasn't enough, another Hollywood star, Wallace Reed, also became an embarrassment. A clean-cut all-American heartthrob had become addicted to morphine. When the studio found out, they got Reed medical help, and in typical Hollywood fashion, the publicity department promoted Reed's recovery, hoping to avoid a scandal. Here, we see him looking healthy and strong in this promotion for one of his racing films. In truth, Reed was institutionalized within a few weeks of this film being shot and died shortly thereafter at the age of 32.
Hollywood scandals of the past were shocking because the public had been given a false impression of the stars. They were no longer people with human failings, but more like gods and goddesses whose very personalities were molded by the great promoters, the Hollywood publicity departments.
Tonight, Hollywood is staging a unique costume party. The stars attending are impersonating various other screen personalities. Here is Lois Wilson as Jackie Cooper in Skippy, and Gloria Swanson as Helen Hayes in The White Sister. What a night for the photographers. Gloria looks glorious, and her husband, Michael Farmer, looks very chinky as Warner Oland in Fu Manchu. What a picture. The White Sister in the clutches of Fu Manchu. But don't worry, folks. Here comes someone to the rescue. It's Polly Moran as Anna May Wong in a Chinese version of Ha-Cha-Cha-Cha. Fay Ray appears as she did in King Kong, and her husband, John Monk Saunders, as Lionel Barrymore in Svengali. Lillian Tashman and her husband, Edmund Lowe, in a clever impersonation of Lionel Barrymore's Kringeline. Zeppo Marx, wearing the toupees of 10 other male stars from that great Hollywood mystery, To Pay or Not to Pay. Groucho Marx as Rex the Wonder Horse, and Gary Cooper as, well, your guess is as good as mine. Chico Marx as one of the witches of Endor, but we don't know which end. Mary Pickford as Gilda Gray, with Cary Grant as Jack Oakey. Frederick March doing a sprightly impersonation of Bobby Clark of Clark and McCullough. He dances, prances, and enhances many a picture.
Now watch that escapade.
Everything was game for publicity. There were the fan magazines which promoted Hollywood and which Hollywood in turn promoted.
Am Parade von die weltberühmte Künstlerin Marlene Dietrich y la favorita artista de todos los países de habla española, Lupe Vélez. Jung Guok Ming Sing, Anna May Wong of Greta Garbo. 2% till film werden. Liedje de l'Étoile de France, Maurice Chevalier. And his American prima donna, Jeanette MacDonald, who appears in this issue of
Hollywood on Parade. Every fan magazine has a portrait of a star on the cover. On the next page is the index. In this particular instance, I am the index.
Who are you?
I am Drama.
I know, Dr. Jekyll, Mr. Hyde, Dracula, Fu Manchu, Frankenstein, Sean Du. Oh, Mickey Daniels! Mickey Daniels!
I'm just a loose leaf from the comic section.
Here, Roland Young, best remembered for Topper, is the feature article.
But I have what I consider a very unusual collection. And here it is. Penguins. Funny little bird found all the way from the South Pole to the equator. There are none at the North Pole. I've collected these both in America and in Europe, and so many of them have been sent to me by fans. Their chief value to mankind, as far as I can determine, is to appear in pictures made by explorers to the South Pole. This one was the star of a Zane Grey production. He died as a result of too many camera shots.
Newsflash. The steamship
But the life of stardom was often the loss of your private life. Cary Grant, fresh from his big break with Mae West in She Done Him Wrong, had Paramount publicity department joining him as he greeted his first wife, Virginia Sherrill, star of Charlie Chaplin's City Lights.
But don't tell her I sent them.
Leave it to me. Can you see her?
No, not yet. Norman Foster kissing his wife, Claudette Colbert. Theo Carrillo is watching them. Hey, Frankie, you better hurry and get up to that gangplank.
Okay.
Okay. Hello, Dolly. Have a nice trip?
Lovely.
Hey, where'd you get the flowers?
From an admirer.
Not bad.
I delivered your flowers all right, Mr. Grant.
So you sent them. So they're from you.
There is something new under the Hollywood sun. This tremendous sound stage, which is as long as the city block, is too small to hold the big ensembles planned by Warner Brothers for Cain and Mabel, a new musical production. So they're making it 35 feet higher. Lloyd Bacon, director of Cain and Mabel, explains to its stars, Marion Davies and Clark Gable, just how high the stage must go to accommodate the gigantic ensembles which are going to be the most magnificent Hollywood has ever attempted to produce. As the studio call goes out for a record number of chorus girls to fill the enlarged stage, to Warner Brothers Studios in Hollywood come dancers, showgirls, and chorus beauties from all over the country to make application for parts in the big ensembles. But from the thousands that apply, only a small percentage are selected. For a movie chorus girl must have not only perfection in face and figure, but also exceptional dancing ability and a personality that will register before the close-up of the movie camera. To Bobby Connolly, the man in charge of staging and directing the musical numbers in Cain and Mabel, goes the difficult task of selecting the prettiest of all these pretty applicants. And his experienced eye can pick a perfect chorus girl at a moment's glance. When Director Connolly is satisfied that the dance numbers are letter perfect, the erection of the sets begins. Almost overnight, the stage is transformed into a seething mass of beauty. Powerful arc lights are strung overhead. Electricians, cameramen, prop men, wardrobe women, and tremendous camera cranes appear on the set, and actual shooting is underway.
The Hollywood publicity machine shifted into high gear when trumpeting its latest product. Attention was lavished on trailers for films which are largely forgotten today. It was not every day the studios rebuilt an entire soundstage for a film. The fact that the film starred Marion Davies, paramour of millionaire publisher William Randolph Hearst, may have had something to do with it.
Bill Henry, folks.
But hit or miss, the Hollywood premiere was a national event with stars vying for the public's attention. I remember.
The crowd is tremendous. The clicking you hear, folks, is from the telegraph keys in the press box, where the newspaper correspondents are describing to the world the brilliant spectacle presented here before. And now we see that scintillating personality, Loretta Young, escorted by Russ Colombo.
George Rapp. That guy up there. Hello, everybody. When I was a young fella, Horace Greeley said, "Go west, young man, go west." So I came west. But Miss West hasn't said to me, "Come up and see me sometime," as yet.
And now the huge crowd is awed as the star of stars makes her appearance. Every feminine eye follows her dazzling gown. Every masculine eye, oh well, must we go into that? Mae West has come to town.
Hello, folks. I wish you were up here at Mr. Corman's beautiful theater to see the grand opening of premiere of my new picture, I'm No Angel. Of course, I didn't call it I'm No Angel for nothing. Don't forget, come up and see me sometime.
Charlie Chaplin has just arrived with Paulette Goddard, chaperoned by Jackie Cooper.
I worked with Norman Torog, my uncle by marriage. He married my mother's sister. In 1930 in Skippy, and again in that other film, Sookie, there's a scene I've described in my book where he not only threatened to shoot this little dog I had to get me to cry on a scene, but because I used to bring the dog to work with me and it'd sit in my chair all the time. He staged a little thing where there was a security man there, picked the dog up and took it behind a truck over here, and they fired the gun off because they said that they had to shoot the dog because it was affecting my concentration, and of course it made me cry, and they got the scene they wanted, but they also had to get a doctor. I was crying for a couple of days.
As a child, you were expected to work as hard as an adult, and even act adult, as demonstrated here by one of the great child stars, 12-year-old Mitzi Green.
Listen, I'm going to let you in on a little secret. Mother and Daddy want me to sing a song all about toys and dolls, but I don't want to. I want to sing a grown-up song, and to be in the right atmosphere, I think I'll put on my evening gown.
I feel most kids really rather be playing as long as they're avoiding school rather than working. And it's difficult to try and get some child to cry, especially, or to act mean or nasty. They don't want to. They tend to want to be nice, and they certainly don't want to cry. And you're asking them to reach inside themselves for emotions that they're not prepared to reach down for. And you don't want to feel you're going to be the cause of a bad night's sleep for that youngster.
During the early 30s, a series of parodies about Hollywood were made starring 3-year-old kids, largely forgettable, except for the series star, Shirley Temple.
Contest. Serve your right. How about me? What's your name? Four-legged sweet track. More legs, huh? You know the part? Backward. Okay, dress her up quickly.
Within months of this short's release, Shirley's dimpled face was known from coast to coast. Another budding star of the time faced a different problem.
Well, you could if you were as big a liar as I am.
I'll see you later, Bing.
Just a minute. I was wondering, George, you know the young lady in your act, Miss Allen?
Gracie?
Yeah.
Sure.
She's delightful.
You like her?
I think she's a charming girl.
I like her myself.
She's a beautiful girl, too.
I think so.
I was wondering if you could fix it up for me to meet Miss Allen.
Now, do you like our act, or do you like Miss Allen?
Well, I likes the act, and I likes Miss Allen.
Sort of likes everything.
Yeah, with me it's likes.
I see. Well, I'll have you meet Miss Allen. Gracie, come here. See Allen, and I
Oh, Martin Downey.
No, Rudy Valley.
Gracie, that's Bing Crosby.
Oh, now you're going to change your name. Nobody will know you.
That was Bing's biggest problem. Nobody knew what he looked like, even though everybody knew his voice. He was a promoter's dream, with the stories of all his films built around establishing a face to go with the already well-known voice. It wasn't difficult to figure out what the main plots for all his films would be.
I surrendered it.
I'll be right back, dear.
Oh, please don't misunderstand.
How could we?
Won't you let me tell you how it happened?
We're not a bit interested.
Well, you see, it was only because I was following Beautiful. I didn't even know that woman out
You
there.
don't even know us. You're just a masher.
Oh, no, not at all. Really, I'm not.
Who are you?
Well, you see, my name is Crosby.
Oh, I suppose you're going to tell us you're Bing Crosby.
Oh, yes, that's me, Bing Crosby.
You will now hear Bing Crosby sing, Out of Nowhere.
Have you any more jokes?
Well, that's no joke, really.
Mr. Crosby would be very much flattered if he knew of your impersonation.
Oh, tut. No impersonation. That's really one of my records.
I'll bet you have a record, but it wouldn't stand broadcast.
And so Bing usually settled all the problems by the end of the film, simply by proving that he was who he said he was.
What's your name? Bing Crosby.
Yeah?
If you let us go, I'll be Mrs. Crosby in a few minutes.
That's right.
You're Bing Crosby, huh?
Yes, sir.
Sound your A.
I may seem proud, I may act scared. That's just a pose. Oh, I'm not that way. 'Cause deep down in my heart I say, I surrendered it. We play the game of stay away, but it costs more than I can pay.
You have just heard Bing Crosby, broadcasting from the studio soundstage in Hollywood, California, where Bing is making another musical picture with the usual quota of Coslow and Johnson sensational song hits. Tune in tomorrow at the same hour, and Bing will croon some of these new numbers for you. This is station KMX, Hollywood, California.
Just heard you singing.
Way out here? See, I thought those stages were soundproof.
I even heard you up in Beverly.
Beverly Hills. Oh, I catch on. You got a radio in your car.
That's it. You know, I'm a radio fan.
You're a radio fan. Well, then we're even, because I'm a picture fan of yours.
Great.
When are you going to make another picture?
I came down to work on a story today.
You're writing the story?
Yes.
Say, you couldn't find a part in there for an old broken-down singer, could you?
Absolutely.
Well, you take care of me, and I'll take care of you on the radio.
Now, that's the bargain.
So?
Mary Pickford once said she wanted to be remembered as she was. And in many ways, that's the legacy of old Hollywood. Hundreds of thousands reached for stardom. Yet for the many who achieved it, what they mostly found was a gilded prison. Even still, our memories of old Hollywood are memories of better times, simpler problems, and legendary folk heroes.
Dream on, little Miss 1472. In a few hours, a new day dawns. A day that may turn those dreams to realities. A day that may discover you basking in the brilliance of fame. But if you fail, there is always home, your friends, and a certain young man back east who'll be waiting for you, whether you're a brilliant movie star or just Hollywood extra girl, number 1472.
But I know how you make people laugh.
You do, huh?
Yes, I certainly...
How? Uh-huh. No, you're wrong, lady. Do that again. Do that again. It took.
He's wrong.
So this is the way, isn't it? Okay. Pardon me, Mr. Mosley.
Who started this thing here? Wait a minute. Come on, yeah.
Okay.
I'm heading for the left.
Well, Rudy Valley. Well,
Corman Rebel, two of Broadway's best writers. What do you boys?
Thank you.
It was only 3 weeks ago you were up there.
Those airplanes, you know, here and there. Say, you look swell. Look at that complexion. Hollywood a few days. Oh.
Look, you're looking swell yourself. What is that, Fleischmann cheese?
You have booped your last boop.
If you wish to ask any questions concerning your film favorites, send in your requests to Misinformation, Station STAR, Hollywood, California.
Come with me and find your dream. I've got a ticket and a scheme to put you on the silver screen going Hollywood today. I'll teach you how to sing and dance. I'll cast you in a film romance. You'll never have a second chance going Hollywood today. You'll take your place among the stars and dine with them and laugh. The public and press will mob your car and beg you for an autograph. When at the studio's command, you're crowned the queen of movie land. Remember, I'm your biggest fan going Hollywood today.
Now that you've had this intimate glimpse of Hollywood nightlife, you can readily see that the stars that shine before the camera's day have to twinkle before their public again at night. This is Pat O'Brien, signing off.